first time I'm doing this on Facebook Live. I'm really excited. But we are in the Toyota Green Room with Refinery 29 co-founder and executive creator director Piera Gelardi. Great to have you here. This is obviously a live interview, so we're going to have people coming and going. You're going to hear all the backgrounds of what happens.
This is real life,
morning
people.
News show. But we want to talk more about our discussion this morning, because I think Refinery 29 really focused on an issue that is prevalent throughout society. 67% of society identifies themselves as plus size, at size 14 or larger.
Yeah.
And they get maybe 1 or 2% of coverage in the media. That's shocking.
Yeah, it's really shocking. You know, when we learned that, we were, we were really surprised at that great divide between, 67% of the population being 14 up, media and advertising only representing them 1 to 2%. And, it's really this invisible majority that is not, we're leaving so many women behind in the stories that we're telling and the images that we're showing. And we felt that was really detrimental to women's confidence and how they see themselves, because what we see around us and the stories that get told tell us what's valued in our society. And when you don't see yourself, when you don't see your story being told, when you don't see your image out there, it teaches you that you're not worthy. And I think that really chips away at people's confidence and their feelings of self-worth, and that really breeds shame.
When you don't see yourself represented, and you talk about subtle things like even casting in movies, right? You're the supporting character, you're never the lead role.
Yeah.
Somebody,
you're the funny friend.
You're the
funny
not
friend.
The protagonist.
Right.
And even in cartoons, they talked about Ursula being overweight, sort of the villain is the size 14 or plus.
And that's the only character as a child that they saw
growing
that
up.
Plus size women see representing them in the cartoons, and that she's a villain.
Over the years, we've seen more plus size models really come to fame, right? And make a name for themselves and make a name for society and those they are representing. Has that had an impact thus far?
I think it's really interesting. I think, at Refinery 29, we started our company to sort of celebrate individuality and self-expression, and part of that was really showing a diverse and inclusive range of women in our content. And so I think, it's an interesting time, because also this, millennial generation has come up with social media. They're able to insert their own images into the visual dialogue, which then broadens, who we're seeing in our media, and social media is arguably the media that we consume the most. So I think that's been interesting. We are seeing a conversation around body positivity. We're seeing more plus size models come to the forefront, but there's still a huge gap in who's being represented. And I'm always really surprised by it too, because the plus size fashion industry itself is a $20 billion potential market, and yet most plus size women, they can't go into a store and buy clothes in their size. They have these huge vast shopping deserts where there's nothing that they can buy. They have to go online or go to specialty stores. And I think also in media, it's so often been like the plus size issue, and they get one issue out of the whole year.
Like we've covered it, check.
Check.
It's like you get a month and that's it. But it doesn't address the issue, though. How do you balance being accused of not focusing on good health and sort of equating being overweight with being unhealthy? How do you define overweight? I mean, I know that a lot of the women who portray themselves as plus size models, and a lot of millennials, do eat balanced meals, do exercise, do feel healthy, but they're not size 2.
Yeah. Well, I think, societally we've pushed this beauty standard that thin equates to beautiful. And there are so many women that, no matter how hard they try, if they worked out, the majority of their day every day and ate salad for every meal, like that's just not how they're built. That's just not their body. And so, our take is that, unless you're a doctor and you're specifically working with someone, you don't know what their health is. And I think it's part of our bias against plus size people that we question the health of someone based on their weight, whereas we wouldn't do that for a thin person. And so to us, it's really more about representation, showing, the world as it really is, giving women, a picture of themselves in our content. And because we think that, health begins with mental health too. And it's really like, if you're not seeing yourself, if you're not seeing your image, it's perpetuating this cycle of shame. and everything comes from self-love and feeling self-worth. As humans, our greatest desire is to belong, and so that's really what we're focused on. We have other health content, but we don't put weight and health together because I think they're totally different conversations, and I think we just have a conditioning to question plus-size women's weight where we wouldn't do that for straight-sized women.
Yeah, and this whole week we've partnered with Refinery 29 to talk about issues pertaining to millennials, and I hosted a panel earlier in the week with a group of millennials, and we talked about how millennials don't necessarily identify themselves with certain labels, right?
Yeah.
So you don't say I'm overweight. You don't say I'm petite. You don't say necessarily I'm even straight, gay, whatever it is. Does this, from what you're hearing from viewers, does this generation view weight and image differently than their predecessors?
Well, I think there is a real celebration of self-identity. They want to see themselves reflected in the content that they're consuming and the brands that they're buying, and they I think they are kind of defying labels. They don't want to be put in boxes. They want to be celebrated for their uniqueness. And I think, all people are complex. All people are imperfect. All people, so it's really sort of bringing those things out and showcasing a different side of what people naturally are, which is really highlighting that complexity and trying to not put people into boxes. I think even the term plus size is one that I wish we could get rid of, but
there's a negative connotation to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do think, though, there is some sort of shift. You talk about especially high-end designers that cater to sample size models and really fitting to their bodies. Most people are not a size 2 or a size 0, and it's interesting that the number one, area of retail where you are seeing growth is in activewear, right?
Yeah.
People are really dressing to be comfortable,
Yeah.
and you can make activewear attractive enough to wear to work and what have you, but people are really focusing on their own comfort and how they feel as opposed to trying to fit a mold of a certain look or brand. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think it's a new shift, and I think millennials sometimes get dinged for being selfish or being more self-absorbed, and I think what we are seeing is a generation that is more cognizant of their health, their well-being, balance in their lives, and really forging their own path, not feeling like there's one direct line that they have to follow, but kind of wanting to find their own way. We talk about our audience as our determined dreamers, because I think that we see this generation that does want the space to dream, to create their own path, to follow their passions, but they're hustlers. They're finding the way to get there.
Yeah, and they're setting different standards too. I read Refinery 21 daily. I'm a loyal follower, and I have to tell you, there have been a couple of clothing items, a couple of articles that have really stood out to me that I bought, trends that I hadn't heard about, that I'm like, oh my goodness, this really makes sense, and it's coming from younger generations.
Right.
So as much as they can learn from us, we can learn from millennials as well.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset, it's a mindset more than a generation, and to me that mindset is about wanting to grow and learn and progress in your life and to be yourself.
And to change. I mean, you think about that, 67%, and yet they're getting 1 to 2% of the attention. That's not going to be a business model. I mean, forget from a society standpoint, from a business standpoint, it's not sustainable.
No, it's not. I think that it's the most diverse generation in U.S. history. They want, it's also a very values-driven shopper where, as consumers, want to see their values represented by the brands that they're buying from. And so I think that brands that aren't addressing the plus-size market, that aren't, addressing a diverse consumer base are going to get left behind, because millennials are also huge financial power. So
they've got the power of the purse. They've got their phones. They've got their credit cards on their phones, their smartphones, and they know what they want, and they go out and get it, and they know what they don't like. Piera, great to have you on.
Great to
sit down with you off the show, after the show, in the Toyota Green Room.
Yes.
And thank you all, Facebook, for watching.
Thank you.